Alright, Reaperman here with a pretty rare live stream from me. So, looks like I'm streaming at this point. Looks like everything's green, got the chat window up. And, I guess it's time for a quick confession here. So, I've never beaten Super Mario Bros. I know, everybody in my school beat it, or at least they said they did, but I have never beaten it. 37 years and I have pumped countless hours into this game, but I have never beaten it, and I kind of want to take care of that, perhaps live on this stream. Most likely not, though, so don't get your hopes up too high. So, first off, let's give this a start here, and see if I can survive my first Goomba. That guy has killed me so many times, it's not even funny. So anyway, for this playthrough, I got a couple little rules for myself. Well, a few little rules, actually. So, the first rule is that I will not be using any warp zones. If I accidentally trigger a warp zone, I will restart, and this has happened to me. So, it happened to me in, World 4-2. I didn't know there were 2 warp zones in it, and thought I was just going to happy bonus time land. Turns out, no, I was stuck going into a warp zone. So the second thing that I'm not going to do is I'm not going to do that little kind of one-up trick. The one where you bash a shell upside down on that staircase, especially the one in 3-1, to build up 99 lives. I'm not doing that. I'm taking this thing with stock lives only. So that's going to be kind of a hindrance, I suppose. The third thing that I'm not going to do is kind of goes along with the warp zone thing, but in levels like this one, where there is a destructible ceiling that I can kind of run along, I am going to not allow myself to do that, even though every part of my body is going to be fighting me to bash these out, come up here, collect the coins, bash these out, and then just finish the level. Not gonna do that. Nope. Even though it's pretty much automatic at this time. This means that I'll actually be playing a lot of these underground levels, mostly for basically the first time here, like 4-2 for example. The reason I didn't know that there were 2 warp zones in it, never played any of that level. So I think it's kind of odd that I haven't ever actually beaten Super Mario Brothers. Like I said, everybody in school swore up and down they did, but I just never have. I can get to World 8, I can get to about World 8-2, maybe even World 8-3, something like that. But I just cannot finish the game. Also, for some reason, my mind has forgotten where a lot of the secrets are, a lot of the one-ups, and what's even worse is I forgot where those little, yeah, this is gonna go real well. I forgot where every single vine in this damn game was. So I have no idea why that is, and, ooh, coins. So I'm going to be moving past quite a lot of secret stuff. I do remember some of the World 1 stuff, thankfully. Not a lot, though. So this is just going to be me basically fumbling around until, until I get sick of fumbling around. And I'm going to go through every little level and try and complete this game. Now the footage for this is actually being captured from a device called an NT Mini. This, if you haven't heard of it, this is a game console put out last year by Kevin Horton, aka Kevtress. It was put out for about, $500 and some bucks, I think. And since then, because this was only a 2-run system, the price has kind of tripled, and now it's like a $1,500 system. Fit only for the richest of weirdos, so go figure on that one. Boom. But what it does is it's an FPGA system, which means instead of a processor inside of it, it's got a big fat gate array. And that gate array's got a few benefits. One is that it actually simulates every chip in the system in some way. So it comes up with very accurate, I guess, emulation, simulation of how the game should run. The other nice thing about it is that it outputs... Wow. So I didn't know those sat on the bottom of the screen like that. That's kind of cool. His legs were even coming back at the end. I'm going to have to save that footage out. But anyway, you get a very high degree, or a very high quality simulation, and you get 1080p 60 video. And it's actually 1080p 60 video. It's none of the 59 point whatever NTSC video. So the game plays ever so slightly too fast, I believe. It's a fraction of a percent. We'd never notice it here, but the effect is that it doesn't have any of the judder that you would normally associate with an NTSC signal being forced up to straight 60 FPS. Now my TV can actually display 1080p 59.5 Hertz just fine, and my streaming software can actually make the stream go to that just fine. The problem comes with one, YouTube can't make it work just fine. Well, that sucked. YouTube can't make it work just fine, and also my capture device can't make it all work fine. So that kind of sucks. So anyway, that's how I can get video sharp enough to see the little pixels in the flames. And as a kid, I never would have seen that. Neat. Forgot about those. Whee! So not only haven't I beaten Super Mario 1, I've only beaten one Super Mario game. So I haven't beaten Super Mario 2 or 3. Really, I haven't given Super Mario 2 much of a chance. Haven't beaten Super Mario World. But the game that I have beaten is Super Mario Land. And that's the first Game Boy one. So for whatever reason, the portable titles tend to get the Super Mario Land kind of moniker on them. One thing that's odd is that with Nintendo making so many new games since, I don't think they ever made a regular Mario Brothers sequel. Maybe I'm mistaken on that. So when I was a kid, I actually got the Nintendo quite a lot later than most of my classmates. Instead, what I had was an Atari 800. So you may have heard of the Atari 2600. That's kind of a really fairly primitive game console that came out in well, I think 77. And the Atari 800 was a much more advanced system that came out in 79. The problem was it was quite expensive. I actually found Pa's receipt for the damn thing, and it was $500 for the system and $500 for the disk drive, because it was, of course, a full-on computer. And that's $500 in 1980s bucks. So I figure that's probably, you know, $1,000 probably comes out to about $3,000 in today's bucks. So it was the massive gaming rig of its time there, and I was stuck with that thing until about 1992, when I finally saved up enough money from my jobs to get a Nintendo. Wii World 2-2. Everybody's favorite world. Nobody ever stopped to ask, hey, we can add this new variety to gameplay, but is anybody gonna like it? No, nobody likes the underwater levels. There's just something weird about the inertia. And I don't know if it's really entirely about the inertia, because, like, Super Mario 3, I believe, and definitely Super Mario World had ice inertia, and that was just nothing but fun, I don't think. I mean, I think that worked out just fine. So I don't know what it is about the underwater levels that I just don't dig. And a lot of Super Mario games actually don't have water levels, so this is kind of an idea that didn't carry forward as well as most Super Mario concepts. Anyway, on the old Atari 800, I didn't have Super Mario, but I had regular Mario. And there were actually two versions for the system. I didn't find out about the newer version until I was an adult. But the Atari 800 line actually had quite a long lifespan, from 79 all the way up until about 87 or so. And it actually kind of came out in 3 different waves. It came out with the original wave, the XL wave, and then the XE wave. And the last of them, the XE wave, was going up directly against Nintendo here. So they actually, because they had a licensing agreement with Nintendo, released a new version of Mario Brothers for Atari 800, actually technically the XE game system. And I played that one, and it's a really impressive port. The one that I grew up with is absolutely not impressive. I wouldn't call it quite as good as the Nintendo version, the one on NES, I should say, but it was up there. It was a good little game. Okay, second castle. Okay. Thought that fireball forgot about me there for a second. So I know that some of these castle levels actually have a pattern that you have to do. I think World 4 does. I'm not sure much beyond that. World 8 definitely does. And no, I don't actually know the patterns for these. So that's gonna suck. It's also gonna suck that I can't damage boost through Bowser here. Especially since this is the one... should have gone under. For some reason the fireballs seem faster this second life. Much faster. So I don't have any of the paths through Bowser's castles memorized. So this is, if I actually do make it to World 8-4, this is probably not going to be the most, I don't know, the shortest run of Bowser's castle you've ever seen. Let's see if we can get up there. Boom. And Toad telling me my princess is in another castle. Now in Super Mario Land, the one that I have beaten, it works a little differently. So instead of having a Toad there to tell me that I'm in the wrong castle, the baddies actually dress up one of the, you know, one of the little minions, like a Goomba or something or other, as Princess Daisy. And then I get in there and it changes back into an enemy. It's kind of cute. I really like Super Mario Land, but it's not very closely related to the other Super Mario games. Almost none of its ideas carried forward. In fact, I don't think it's got a single enemy from Super Mario that works the same. Maybe Goombas. Goombas probably work the same in it. I know Koopas just explode, and all of the other enemies are just weird. In the last world, which is actually, I think, World 4 in that game, you're fighting a whole bunch of ninjas doing their Judy chops on you. Yeah, I'm not going to run through it. I'm just going to wait for this guy to come down here. There we go. Yes. Nailed it. Just like I wanted that to go. I think there is a mushroom in one of these, maybe. Wishful thinking? Yeah, this is totally wishful thinking. There's not a mushroom in one of these. Oh, there is. Okay. Let's see how close I am to the end of this level. Okay, so this is the place. This is the stairwell that most people stomp on one of those guys, and then in some way, like, kind of juggle him back and forth in here with the bouncing, and somehow that generates a whole crap ton of one-ups. I'm not sure how it works. I'm not sure... I've never pulled it off myself. I'm not sure how absolutely everybody always knew about that. It must have been a Nintendo Power or something, because there was an internet back then. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. But there wasn't the wealth of entertainment content on it. fact, I got onto the internet with that old Atari. I can't remember. I think we might have actually not gotten on there until the ST. I know they had a BBS that we got onto with the Atari, but then the university's BBSs kind of got internet joined at some point in there. So that was kind of cool. BBSs were just the coolest thing back then. We actually had a computer user group, and they had a really nice BBS. Of course, computer user groups back then were largely about pirating software. So you go there with a box of discs, and you all trade games around. And we all had all the games, of course. I had suitcases full of games from this users group. I remember it was called the MAAUG, the Madison Area Atari Users Group. Boom. And it was all about Atari 800s, and then it became all about Atari STs, of course, and then I think that was about it after that. There's a couple of Commodore guys in there, and Commodore and Atari actually became a bit related about halfway through. So what happened was Jack Tramiel, I know I'm pronouncing his name wrong, rest his soul, he's gone now, but also an Auschwitz survivor, too. Talk about great things he did afterwards. But he came out with Commodore Business Machines and the Commodore 64. But unfortunately, his board kicked him out. They threw him out of the company. So he bought Atari for $1 and proceeded to use them to try and run his old company out of business. Okay, somehow we're in World 3-4 already. That's weird. Feels like this game's just flying by. Don't worry, it won't when I restart for about the 5th time. Your stream quality is still green according to my little monitor over there. I actually have a secondary monitor on this side, so I keep looking over there. It's way across the room. Oh, nailed it! Yeah, that's awesome. This is one of these times this is going to go horribly wrong. So I have a secondary monitor sitting on my old retro computer desk over there. It's actually, my Atari 800 is set up and it's hooked to that monitor. It's the Atari 800's only monitor, and it's also my PC's secondary monitor. So it's got like a converter, an S-video to VGA converter on it. And I can just monitor my stream quality from there. I'm not monitoring it on YouTube, though. I'm just monitoring it on the broadcaster software. So anyway, I was saying that this is a Kevtris system. Now, Kevtris has been he's released a couple of game systems in the last year, and they are definitely worth picking up. Right now, so Analogue Interactive has been making his systems, so head on over there and check out their Super NT. I think they've got a pre-order going, unless you want the black one. I think that one's available right now. Oh, this is going to go wrong. Nope, got him. So that's a Super Nintendo FPGA that they have for actually a fairly reasonable price. So Kevtris has been working on these FPGA cores since, the early 2000s, I think. And I think the first time I ran into Kevtris was actually on the Ben Heck forums, benheck.com. It's actually Ben Heckendorn's forums. And I think this was probably like 2002, 2003. Whoop. Almost ate it there. Is there a mushroom in here? No, that would have been awesome. But anyway, so Kevin Horton's been working on these cores for years and years and years and years. And he finally got around, there was some kind of a flop, kind of an internet flap, called the Coleco Chameleon, and they kind of jerked Kevtris around a little bit, and he got upset and just decided to kind of release his own system. So that's what's happening here, and he's been releasing all these old cores that he's made up over the last, nearly 15 years or so, probably. And they feel really nice. So like I say, they're going to be more responsive than emulation generally. They don't have the overhead of a full-on operating system. And it's gate simulation. It's very accurate. So you would compare it not to like a low-end emulator, you know, nothing you would run with frame skip or anything, but like more like a high one, more like a Pagan is generally considered, you know, up there with this level of simulation here. So this is what tripped me up that one time. So I did not know that there was a warp zone above this thing, but there totally is. There's this little stairway up to that block, and I'm just sitting here, you know, trying to beat the game and investigating this thing, and then I trigger this vine that comes out of that block, and I go up there and I get forced to go to a warp zone that takes me straight to World 8. Is that a... nope. Oh yeah, I keep trying these pipes, because again, I don't usually actually play the underground levels, because I can just get up on them and run over the top of them. But I've promised myself that I won't do that for this playthrough. I also don't really know how to get in to this thing. I don't know how to get into this at all. This is about the best I can think of, but obviously that was not it. Maybe it works now. I do not have a lot of time to jerk around with this, so... yeah, I'm just heck with coins. Whee! So I think these FPGA systems are actually... I think they're the future for us here. So I've noticed that over my years, as a freaking old man here, that emulation seems to have gotten considerably worse. Ah! That was a mistake. Yeah, I'm going to drop straight down here, because I've made that mistake before, too, of trying to make that low headroom jump. Awesome. 100 points. The best. Clearly I'm going for a high score run on this one. Okay, so we're up to World 4-3. I think this is the point where the game starts giving you more advanced jumps. Like a lot of jumps that there isn't a lot of slack on. Like this one right here, I can barely make that platform with a standard jump, height-wise. So this is the point where platforming tends to get a bit more advanced. Nailed it! Yes! Exactly what I wanted to do. Boom. Boom. So I just checked myself out in the stream and remembered that I'm wearing my silly hat today. This is my tension whore hat. It's very good for streaming and such. It's actually part of a full-on Tron Guy cosplay outfit that I've got. So Tron Guy, he's a very old internet meme. 100 points again. I'm doing awesome. A very old internet meme, and it's funny because it's kind of an out-of-shape guy in a skin-tight bodysuit with you know, light-up everything on, right? So, since I'm also a kind of a fat, out-of-shape guy, I figured, hey, that'd be a great Halloween costume, so I actually made one, and in making it, I realized how much more work I put into my costume than he had to do to his. All he had to do was make stuff up, and I had to research. It's really hard to figure out what's on his back, and it's generally not what you would, the kind of pattern you would think either. So the reason I did get through this one, and I did the pattern right, is actually because I've been doing these here live streams, and this is the one that I have memorized. But World 8, I have never even seen World 8 before in my life, so I have no idea what the pattern is. This one I think is just all the way up and then all the way down. I'm not even sure if the all the way up is required or not. No mushrooms? So, in some ways, the new Mario games are a lot easier than they used to be. I think they removed lives, which are going to be my primary trouble here. is that I've only got the stock number of lives. I keep forgetting to check out how many it is. But on the other hand, it's gotten easier until you look at... yeah, I'm going to try for this one. Until you look at some of the Mario Maker stuff, and man, that Mario Maker stuff is just absolutely nuts. I've watched some of the live streams of that, and holy jeez, I don't know how they can do that. Never pulled off even a single shell jump before in my life. So either they didn't used to really be in the game, or used to be really hard to pull off, or probably the game just never required us to do it, so I have no idea how that's working. So that was a little nasty thing there, where it looked like the bullet was going to nail me for sure. It turns out that if Mario is on the downward arc from his jump and he gets hit with anything, that counts as a hit, I believe. I was watching a whole YouTube video on Mario collision detection, and oh, jeez. Really hoping that... Oh, yes. That's good level design right there. That's what it's about. Because that was the moment I needed to damage boost, and this is a mistake. What this is doing is this is teaching me a valuable lesson about not trying pipes. That's what this is doing. Awesome. Oh, I think there's a mushroom under here. So, let's get this guy off, see what comes. Nothing. Okay, so maybe we can go over the top of all this then. And we're at the end. So everybody in the world knows this now, but the timer in Super Mario Bros. Is actually tied to how many bonus points you get at the end. If you manage to get a 6, a 3, or a 1, that's how many bonus fireballs shoot up here at the end. And like I did just there, if you completely miss them all, miss those 3 numbers, then you get none. I really like off-screen bullet bills. Whoever thought this was fun was just great. It is fairly nice variety, I suppose. I don't want the mushroom that badly. So you may notice my palette's a little different than most emulators. The FC, or sorry, NT Mini here actually has support for all the emulator palettes, including this one, which really reminds me how my old Panasonic monitor used to view this game, and it was a pretty good monitor. So unlike a lot of the TVs of the day, it did composite video. A fair number of them actually did composite video, I guess, but we didn't really prioritize TVs. Pa was a TV repairman in a past life, so we actually had a bunch of halfway working TVs. It's kind of like mechanics in old cars. So we didn't have the good TVs, but we did have a good Panasonic monitor for the Atari. And it would take composite video, but also something called Lumachroma video, which is, it's basically S-video, but instead of it being in one plug, it's in 2 RCA jacks, one for luminance and one for chroma. In fact, I think they're electronically identical. Maybe I'm wrong. But it had kind of a unique way that it displayed colors. Oh, how am I going to get around him? Okay. So I think I'm going to have to go under on this one. Or, and hear me out now, what I can do is I can stand on the bridge and eat fireballs. So I only have 1 life, so this may actually be the moment where I restart, because I can't possibly get that block. So anyway, the way the monitor displayed colors was a little different, and I think that is the end of my game. Okay, starting over with the easy levels then, and discussing my awesome 80s monitor. So a lot of people, well, a lot of emulators and really the naked RGB data suggest that the sky should be purple in this level. But that's just not how it was displayed on CRTs, and if it was, then we would have adjusted the tint knob until the sky was blue, and we just rolled that way. Probably should have grabbed the 1-up instead of this. I have some regrets about that thing that I did. Oh well. We're still in the easy worlds. Part of me really misses the old days where TVs just worked, too. You didn't have to worry about an old game system having that 59.5 to 60 hertz jitter. You didn't have to worry about, you know, will my projector even sync with this thing? It was just so much simpler then. You just kind of shoved composite video into it, or RF, which was even more bulletproof. And then you just kind of went with it. For one thing that I don't think retro gamers have yet is a nice RF modulator. So back in the old days, what we would do is we'd take a VCR. It doesn't matter if it really worked or not, but it had a TV tuner inside of it. And you hook your antenna up to that, and then that would do your conversion of composite to composite from the RF signal. Yay! We don't have any modern equivalent of that. So we're either whoa, that thing. 1-up. I want that. I want that. Give me that 1-up. Give me that 1-up. It's a lot of work for this here 1-up. Yay! Whew. Yeah, I don't think I can do that. So, for anybody just tuning in, I have never beaten Super Mario Brothers. And this is me 37 years late here, trying to do that for the first time. Trying to actually conquer Super Mario Brothers. And I've got 3 rules for myself. The first is no warp zones. The second is no cheaty shell 1-up trick. And the third is that I won't be using I won't be running across the top of those underground levels by smashing out the ceiling. Ooh. Ooh. Okay, that could have gone very, very wrong. And I'm already up to the end of 1-3, so this is going good. This is my second attempt at it here. I think the last time I made it up to 5-4. Ooh. Now, as a kid, of course, everybody said that they beat this game, but this Super Mario Brothers gets really hard in World 8. And I think World 8-2 is about as far as I can go. I may have seen World 8-3, but I've never even personally seen 8-4. I do not know how people got there. My guess is that they cheated. By cheated, I mean somewhere in Nintendo Power, they must have said how to do that cheaty... that cheaty trick with the turtle shell that gets you all the 99 1-ups or whatever. That must have been published in Nintendo Power or something. There were a few other places tips came from back then. So, the internet was around, believe it or not. And there weren't too many people on it. Everybody that wanted to be on the internet was. And there was something called Usenet news groups back then. And there would have been a Rec Arts Games channel that might have had some Super Mario tips in it. But I guarantee you that the kids at school didn't get it from that. The other place they could have gotten it from is every single game in the back of the manual had a little pay-per-minute tip line number, and you could call that and you know, run up your parents' credit cards, getting, you know, little tips for, I don't know, that's just everything about Super Mario. But being a phone service, I'm not sure how they would have actually told you about things. I'm not sure how they would have painted enough of a picture in your head to find, say, a specific block. I'm sure they must have done about as well as they could with that, though. They would have, you know, find these 3 pipes kind of thing, 2 screens later. It's probably something like that. I never got to call one of those. Yay, 5,000 points. Okay, World 2-2 is next. Everybody's favorite level, my own included here. So Super Mario Land, that's the only Super Mario game I have beaten. Super Mario Land has an interesting type of, you know, alternate play level. So instead of doing underwater, they actually have these little shmup levels, and they are just tremendous fun. Why didn't any of the other Super Mario games have shmup levels? Like the final boss in Super Mario Land is, it's a shmup level. You just, you shoot the baddie in his, fat alien face until he dies. And that is how you beat the bad guy in Super Mario Land. Bowser is not the main bad guy. It's actually just some space alien dude. There's actually boss fights in Super Mario Land. It's kind of a big change, actually. Oh, awesome. Well, at least I made it through alive, right? Okay, and there I grabbed, made sure that my time ended in a 6, so I got to see all 6 of the bonus fireballs. I did the math on it once, because I don't really recall exactly how many points you get for those fireballs, and it doesn't really work out to your advantage to sit there at the base of the flagpole and get it the easy way. But I don't really care about points this time around. I'm playing for completion. I think that would have actually passed muster on some of the later Mario games. I don't think I would have died there. I think I would have squished him. Oh, geez. Now, this is actually a nice little bit of variety. I kind of like this. The cheap stage. It's good fun. It's still platforming Mario, but not, well, it's not the underwater level, is what I'm saying there. Ah! Yeah, I love the cheap stage. Nailed the cheap stage. I didn't have to go back very far at all. There. So there were a few other games that I got to play on Ataris that had Mario in it. I guess technically Super Mario or regular Mario Brothers was the only one with Mario in it, but Mario looks and sounds an awful lot like Jumpman from the Pac-Man game, so I think they might be related. Perhaps there is indeed a third Brothers Mario. Okay, World 2-4. This one looks a lot like that one that I died on, except it doesn't have the giant spinny thing in the middle. Ah. Okay, let's just get through this thing. Yeah, this actually looks like, what was it, 5-4? Looks a lot like that. It just kind of tuned down. But I played that exactly as I intended to. 2 Marios left. I really like the video quality on this NT Mini. I like being able to see the little squares in the flame. I think that's just super neat. Okay, and I made it up to here without damaging myself. Means I should be able to damage boost through. Run! Run, run! Yeah, I don't know how that worked out. That was fantastically lucky, and was definitely not at all related to skill there, because my hands did everything they could to lose right there, and it just didn't happen. I thought there was two. Oh good, there is two. The 3-1. This is the world with that weird Koopa stairway that grants the free 1-ups that I have no idea how that came out of. Boom. Yay. I remember my first time playing Super Mario Brothers, actually. My grandmother, oh gosh, she's been dead for probably 20 years now. I was probably, 8 or 9. Anyway, she took me out to dinner to... She lived up in way, way far northern Wisconsin. She took me out to dinner at this little, kind of a fishing lodge. Oop. Of course, you know how much kids like fish. Oh yeah, they just love fish. But anyway, they had this fishing lodge had a VS system with Super Mario Brothers in it, and I really, really enjoyed it. Oh, so this is the staircase that grants the 1-up somehow. I think it's basically they somehow bounce on the shell there until they get all the 1-ups they can stand. But yeah, actually for the first few years, the arcade was the only place I got a chance to play Super Mario Brothers. I got to play it on VS systems, Play Choice 10s, and there were these weird kind of unofficial arcade systems that were kind of set up with kind of janky timer boards and stuff like that. They were basically a Play Choice 10 without the without being official. Okay, let's get through. So it's actually, it isn't too weird for me at all to play Super Mario Brothers with an arcade controller, because it's how I did it for years. And I do have a pretty nice arcade controller adapter for this NT Mini here. I built it myself. There's well, I have actually a video on it. But what it does is it accepts Neo Geo format controllers, and Neo Geo is kind of a obviously it was an SNK system, but because the sticks have nothing inside them but switches, they're actually kind of a standard for arcade controllers in terms of super guns and stuff like that. So they'll just take the Neo Geo controller and shoehorn extra buttons on it as they need to and stuff like that. In fact, I'm working on a new arcade controller now. It's going to be a 6-button Neo Geo controller, which is a little odd, of course, because Neo Geos are only supposed to have 4 buttons. But this one is a super gun. It's actually going to be for the small cab super gun format. And they have kind of an oddball pinout that forces me to lose the select button in the Neo Geo, but yeah, okay. I'll just use insert coin or something for the select button. I actually plan to make a Super Nintendo adapter for it later, so I can play it on my Super NT, the other FPGA system I have. And Kevtris has said that he's working on another project that he can't tell us about, so it could possibly be his third game system. And this is, I guess, 2 years here. It was early 2017 when he released the NT Mini, which is this system. And then later on he released the Super NT. By he released, it's actually built as a collaboration between Analogue Interactive, which is an old Neo Geo consoleized system maker, and the 8-bit dough people. And the 8-bit dough people, they don't know how to make a controller for beans. Laggy as all hell. I got a free one with this one. But I don't know. They do make a decent game system. The controllers are just awful. Actually, Bluetooth anything in my room is awful. I think there's too many Wi-Fi signals. And Bluetooth tends to get really laggy when it's in a noisy environment. So far, the best Bluetooth controller I've had is the PlayStation 3 one. But the worst, oh, it's got to be Ouya. That's like, not even kidding, like a second of lag on that thing sometimes. It's just an absolutely awful controller. Yay. So the big downside about this level is that Akatu guy, I think that's what his name is, he comes back just to make my life awesome. I can kill him again up there, but it's not really worth my time. I drop more of them up there, thanks. This is another kind of a neat level. It's a, variety in the gameplay department. But it's not super annoying. It's not like an underwater stage or anything. Really don't care for those underwater stages. And this is a stage that I've almost failed, at least once, because I didn't realize there's 2 warp zones in it. And I kind of trapped myself going through the second. Getting into the second warp zone, had to restart. So again, to state my limits on this game, I'm not going to do any of that cheaty shell mashing trick. And critically, for levels like this, I'm not going to run across the top of the ceiling at all, bypass the level, and I'm not going to use any warp zones. Actually watched a whole YouTube video on just this level in speedrunning once. No idea why, but I sat through the entire goddamn video. Ooh, comments! I actually can't read comments. I can see that I have them, but they're way over there. Actually, the heck, we'll pause. No, I think. I actually got my eyes lasered like just under a month ago, and they're still healing. So I actually can't read that far away too well. Because I've actually got a secondary monitor sitting over there on my computer desk. It's my Atari 800's monitor. Whoop. But it's also my PC monitor, secondary monitor. I've got a like an S-video to VGA converter on it. Whee! Yay! World 4-3. So it's in World 4-3 that I notice the jumps start getting a lot harder. There's really not a lot of slack in that jump. That's a full height jump there. Full height running jump, I think. There's a lot of those in this level. I think this is another one. Yep. And I noticed that some of the levels after this one, the platforming isn't as hard, so I think this one's a little trickier than maybe it should be for this early in the game. I don't think it's World 8 worthy or anything, but yeah, probably 5 or 6. Okay, so here we are up at 4-4. And I think this one's got a bit of a maze in it. I think you go across the top. I'm not sure if the going across the top part is part of the maze. I do know the maze part starts here. And the solution to this one is the bottom one. Now this is the only maze I know the solution to, and I haven't even seen the maze in World 8.4. I haven't even seen World 8.4. So apparently the whole level there gets kind of tricky. Oh good, I've got a fire flower. I'm going to stand over here on solid ground. There we go. And boom. Yay, Princess is in another castle. We got 3 lives left going into World 5. So this is the world that I died on last time. I think I died on 5.4. I think I made it all the way to the castle. I think somewhere in World 5 there's a pipe that I don't want. I think it punished me with a water level. So I talked a bit about my controller adapter for the Neo Geo to NES. Come on, really? You're not gonna shoot me? Huh. But I actually haven't mentioned much about the controller I'm using now. I'm using an old original NES dogbone. And this one sorely needs a rebuild, but unfortunately I haven't found any rebuild kits for these NES dogbones, so my buttons are just kind of mushy. The other problem is I've noticed that some of the rebuild kits for the other NES controllers, depending on which vendor you get them from, they actually don't feel like a rebuild kit. They actually seem to have modeled their button rubber after the mushy, worn-out rubber, because there's actually supposed to be kind of a tactile snap when you actually depress these things, and my current one does not do that. So that was odd. I think it has something to do with this little man on screen and why the rest of the fire flower didn't run. Why the rest of the fire flower didn't appear there. I'm noticing a lot of these cannons are not firing, and that just... well, maybe it's right. That with that. And World 5-3. Ooh. So thanks to this here NT Mini, I've really been rediscovering a lot of older video games. Its FPGA does, I don't know, like 15 systems or so. And it was built to do NES, and that's what it does without aftermarket firmware. But with aftermarket firmware that's supplied by Kevtris directly, it does a whole bunch of neat systems, including I have some little handhelds that have such an awful screen on them that I've actually never played them. And the one that comes right to mind is the Witara Supervision, and I really haven't been able to play Witara Supervision until this console. So Witara Supervision, it was a little, it was a $50 handheld back in the days when Game Boy was an $80 handheld. It had a slightly higher resolution screen, and it really, you know, on the outside of the box it looked like a Game Boy. I was probably trying to trick grandparents into getting it, but it was it's a bit less expensive, and the games were all kind of terrible. Uh-oh. Oh yeah, I nailed that one. Nailed it. So it looks like I'm going to lose all my lives in here, too. Just like last time. But yeah, it does a lot of those little weird black and white handhelds. Like Witara Supervision, Game Mate, and Game King, stuff like that. But It also does VTech Creative Vision, which is a game system I've never even seen in my life. Oh, also Adventure Vision, which is a game system that, I mean, I saw, but to get one in working order these days is, I mean, ridiculously expensive. Oop, oop, oop. Forget who did Adventure Vision. Entex? Probably Entex. Entex did a bunch of VFD games back in the day, and VFD games were these little, they were kind of like, it's a display technology that's kind of a lot like LCD technology. Like LCD handhelds, the one with the fixed displays. But you used to see it a lot on things like VCRs and cars. They were colorful, but they could, every line in the display could only display one color, so it was kind of like LCD, but in color, and it lit itself, which was kind of a big deal. And they were much more expensive than the LCD games, so the manufacturers tended to put a lot more effort into actually making them worth playing. Well, Entex made a bunch of those games, and then they made a game system, I think it was Entex, made a game system called Adventure Vision, which took programmable cartridges. So currently my skills are enough to get me to the end of 5-4. How depressing. Well, second verse same as the first. I'd also like to congratulate myself for not ever in a stream dying to the first Goomba. I mean, back in the day, he was probably about half my deaths in this damn game. Oop, oop. It's just kind of odd that I've never beaten this game because it was so common for kids back in the day to say they'd beaten it. But this game gets tremendously harder as you approach World 8. And I don't think that most of them actually beat the game. At least not without cheating. Mostly because I never have, and it makes me feel better if I think that other people are in the same boat with me. Probably not, though. Yeah, so I didn't get myself an NES until, Super Nintendo was out, so probably like 1992 or 1993. And from then I had the, pretty much the entire NES library to choose from because everybody was getting rid of their Nintendo stuff at the local Funko land, so I had a chance to pretty much pick up any game I wanted for the system. It must have been really late that I got it, because I remember I bought a buyer's guide right before I did. And that's one weird thing you used to do back in the day. You used to go to the bookstore and buy what's essentially, you know, like a 50-page ad for a video game brand or console. And this buyer's guide was half NES and half Super NES. So it had some of the last Nintendo games released in it, you know, official ones, like Shatterhand and Kirby, and it also covered some of the early Super Nintendo games, you know, Super Mario World was featured fairly heavily, but Choplifter 3 had an odd amount of space devoted to it in there. I'm trying to think what else was in there. It's not coming to mind. But it was kind of neat to see Shatterhand in this thing, and of course it was a little more... Whoa. Almost autopiloted to the warp zone there. No warp zones for me. Because Shatterhand had some neat little, you know, the games had little maps and tips as well. It was kind of neat to see Shatterhand explained. Shatterhand's an okay game, I guess. It's a late release, so it's a little more expensive than it needs to be, and is definitely an overrated game. I think it's probably because most people were already off of an NES by the time it came out. So a lot of people didn't play it back in the day, and then when they came rediscovering the system there. What the heck's Shatterhand? I'm going to try and buy it. What, there's only 10 copies kind of thing? There's more than 10 copies. There's probably 100,000, but there's not nearly as many as a lot of Nintendo games. And looks like we're up to 1-4. Time to show Bowser who's boss and beat the game. World 1. Oh yeah, I nailed that. Did exactly what I wanted to there. There's like these weird coins in here. I cannot figure out for the life of me what they're here for. They're just here, I guess, to give Bowser something more to shoot at, which is me doing those coins. Hey, wrong castle. So I work with a lot of young people up at work. I actually have kind of a military job. And obviously I'm not in the military because I'm a fat old guy. But I hang around a lot of young people, you know, people kind of right out of MOS school. And I was talking to one of them, he was into video games, and he asked me if I had an arcade system, which of course I did. I was actually pricing arcade buttons at that moment. Not that I would ever do that on the government dime or anything, but things happen. So he asked me if I had a game system. Of course I did, and he asked me if I made it myself. And I said, no, it's real. And he didn't seem to have any real concept as to what that meant. He couldn't even think of a world where Raspberry Pis weren't the standard piece of arcade gaming hardware. I think Raspberry Pis are kind of responsible for emulation turning to shit over the last 10 years. Because emulation was getting better and better and better, and then people's standards just dropped to nothing all of a sudden. And I'm just speaking generally. There's things out there like, again, Hagan and stuff like that actually shoot for accuracy, but it seems like so many of them just are good enough. A couple of years ago, I was actually going to some stupid training, again with some very young Marines. They stuck me out in California. And a really terrible trip, actually. They made me stay in the transient quarters, which are barracks. When I checked in, they handed me my sheets at the counter. Great. At least they were fitted sheets, so I didn't have to do, like, you know, boot camp corners or anything stupid. But I kept making my bed because I wasn't sure if they did inspections there. I assume they didn't, but I was always nervous. They gave me their best room too. It was just kind of a terrible room. So anyway, I was out at this stupid baby's first server class, and you know, I'm sitting there talking to the people there. You know, all young guys, all 18, 20, that kind of thing. And I asked them, because they were all stationed there, I asked them where the nearest arcade was. And they just had no idea what I meant by that. And I know there must be an arcade somewhere around there. I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of crumbling ones in malls, you know, the ones where the games don't work right. But I was really hoping for something a little nicer. Actually, back when I was stationed in California, way back 100 pounds ago when I was actually in the military, I actually bought my arcade machine from a arcade closing out in San Diego, which is kind of a bittersweet thing, but hey, it got me my machine. So my cabinet's actually it's a Romstar Neo Geo. So Romstar made a bunch of these kind of janky Neo Geo cabinets, and I've got one of those. It looks like it started out life as a 2-button Neo Geo, so probably, well, Puzzle Bobble came with the thing, and it had kind of a janky marquee, so it was probably a Puzzle Bobble that the that they had added 2 extra buttons to later. So yes, I do have a Neo Geo, but no, it's not the Big Red. I actually have like 100 arcade games. Only the one cabinet, but like 100 arcade games. I've got a few different systems. I've got an Thomas Wave, Naomi. Oh yeah, I did that just right. So I've got an Thomas Wave, Naomi, Neo Geo, of course. I've got a CPS-1. Whoop. I'm trying to think of the other systems I've got. Oh, IGS PGM. Kind of weird back when I was playing around with old MAME. Whoop. Way back in I think the early 2000s, late 90s. They used to have this little warning screen, maybe they still do, that you shouldn't be playing the game if you didn't own it. And in my mind, I was thinking, who would own that many arcade games? And now here I am with 100 of the damn things. And that's not counting doubles. And yes, you do get doubles. You get doubles when you buy like lots on eBay and stuff. I've got a whole bunch of Puzzle Bobbles, King of Fighter 98s, King of Fighter 99. And you get doubles for stupid reasons too. Like you're sitting there watching an auction and I can't let that guy get it for 30 bucks. And then you get another one for 30 bucks that you have absolutely no use for. Yay. So on my King of Fighters 98, I have multiples for kind of a different reason. I've actually got 3 of them. So the first one I picked up was a legitimate game, and bootlegs are a real concern when you're into Neo Geo games. That's why you take them apart even before you play them to check. But anyway, the first one I got was legitimate, but it was Korean. And apparently in Korea, at the time, they did not care to even hear Japanese voices. So they cut a lot of them out of the game. And it was kind of distracting because the animation was still there, like their gums were flapping, but there was no sound, and I kept thinking it was broken until I looked it up. Fireflower. Starting to memorize these things. The second one I got was a straight-up boot, but the third one I got was a legitimate US copy, so it had all the voices. So this is that weird thing on 3.1. Awesome. The stairway that somehow grants free lives, and I have no idea how people back in the day all seem to know about that. I've never gotten it to work, but back in the day they all knew about it, and I don't know if it was in a Nintendo Power or what. Okay, so apparently trees are white, so it's snowing, sky is black, so it's night. Awesome. And we'll just see if we can get through this thing. Yeah, I really wish they would make a dogbone controller rebuild kit, because these mushy buttons from 25 years of use are starting to get to me. They are really supposed to have kind of a rubbery pop to them. And they make rebuild kits for the square ones, but not for these. These do take different buttons. It's actually closer inside to how the Super Nintendo controller looks. It's not the same as that either, but it's a lot closer. Probably should have stocked up when Nintendo was still selling them. I think they were selling them. The other rebuild kit I wish I could find is a Game Boy Micro rebuild kit. The Game Boy Micro is my actual favorite game system. And I stocked up. I bought 4 because this whole dual screen fad, I was going to try and survive it. Didn't quite make it though, because they're still releasing these damn dual screen Nintendos. Whatever. Whoop. Awesome. Anyway, I bought 4 of the things, but it turns out after about a year, the button rubber goes to pot. And I guess they just didn't sell enough Game Boy Micros to bother actually building a rebuild kit for them. Oop. So back when the Micro came out, it wasn't a sure thing if DS was going to take off. Nintendo was still swearing up and down that they were going to support both systems. because they were both out at the time. But then I guess the dual screen install base just got large enough that they just dumped Game Boy Advance. Really a shame, though. Game Boy Advance is a far better system in my mind. In fact, there was even talk of a Game Boy successor there. They called it the Game Boy Evolution, and it was going to come out with the Nintendo Revolution. And the Nintendo Revolution, of course, we suspect did come out as the Wii, but we never actually got the Game Boy Evolution. Ooh, let's see if I can hold on to this. The one thing it doesn't tell me up at the top of the screen that I really would like to know, how many lives I've got. See if I can get through this guy without damage boosting. Oh yeah. Yay! Thank you, Mario. The princess is in another castle. It's kind of weird that I've never actually beaten this game, or I actually haven't beaten any of the console Super Mario games. I've played this one for probably the longest. I also haven't beaten Super Mario 3. But this is my attempt to get my first W in the Super Mario console series. The only Super Mario game I have beaten is Super Mario Land on the Game Boy. It's a pretty good game, but it doesn't really resemble Super Mario too strongly. And the Super Mario Land games have always been kind of experimental. The first one was really weird. The second one was actually probably the closest to Mario. It borrowed kind of a lot from the Super Mario World aesthetic. But then the third one was actually Wario Land. Super Mario Land 3 was Wario Land, and then there were more Wario Land games after that. It's been a while for Wario Land, hasn't it? I don't know, I don't follow up on the new Nintendo. I really like the look of the Switch, but I just can't make myself buy it, and the reason is that it's got 3 non-user replaceable batteries in it. And I'm terrible. I will let a game system sit and rot on the shelf for, you know, half a decade or so sometimes, because, you know, old man. And a lot of times with these modern batteries, when I come back to them, they're all bloated and they've cracked the system case. And I just don't want a Nintendo that does that. In fact, I'd prefer if I could have handhelds that only took AA's. AA's are super nice. Oop. AA's are super nice because then you never have to charge the system. They're also very inexpensive. And if I want to use rechargeable batteries, it gives me the option to do that at any time. And I'll never have to worry about them because the rechargeable batteries will just get better and better as they get updated with the technology. So that's why I don't have a Switch yet, but I really do like a lot of the games on it, and I really like the concept of being able to pop it off of the dock and take it into the can with me to continue playing games. I mean, not that I would ever play games on the can. That would be weird. I wonder how hard it would be to get a streaming setup in there. No reason. Asking for a friend. So anyway, for people that have just joined, I've never beaten Super Mario World, or well, Super Mario anything actually, Super Mario Brothers in this example. I guess Super Mario Land 1 is the only one I've beaten, but I've never beaten Super Mario Brothers 1, and I'm trying to fix that. And I've got 3 rules, just the ones where I don't get extra lives doing the shell trick, I don't use any warp zones, and I don't run across the top of underground levels. Oop. I'm recording off of a system called the NT Mini, which is a 2017 system, I believe, by Kevin Horton. It's now become super expensive because I guess it's been announced that they're not going to make anymore. So somehow this thing turned into like a $1,500 rich weirdo system overnight. But it's an FPGA system, so it's instead of a processor, it's got a gate array that simulates the chips in the systems it covers. And it was designed to do NES out of the box, but it has, Kevin Horton also released some firmware that let it do, oh gosh, a whole bunch of systems, like 15, really oddball systems too. You know, like Watara Supervision, Game 8, that kind of thing. But I really like it because it simulates with very low lag, very high degree of accuracy. Oh crap, run. And the best part about the NT Mini is it outputs 1080p 60, which is super easy to capture these days. I can't remember if it ever so slightly speeds the games up or slows them down. Because NTSC isn't actually 60 Hz, it's usually like 59.5. But some systems, especially Nintendo systems, can tend to run a little fast. A little faster than 60. At least Super Nintendo did. Oh. All of a sudden I'm back up to World 5. So anyway, Kevin Horton started working on these cores, back in the mid-2000s. Yeah, I have no idea how to get into this. I've investigated that and I just can't find a way in. I'm too old and stubborn to look it up, too. Whee! And my time ended in 6, so I get the 6 bonus fireballs with my 5,000. That'd be great if I was going for score, which I'm not. Oops. So anyway, Kevin Horton's been working on these cores for like, years and years and years. And then there was this Coleco Chameleon flap. Oh, shoot. I think I'm dead. Because there's a little mushroom in here and I cannot get it. So he's released 2 systems now, and I think I met him way back in the early 2000s in the Ben Heckendorn forums. And here I get punished again for randomly just hitting pipes. Yay. I was hanging out in the Ben Heckendorn forums because I was actually working on a portable handheld back then. It was actually a bigger version of the Game Boy. So a Game Boy that used a PlayStation 1 screen, which was the thing that we were all using back then. We were all using it because it took analog RGB in. Ooh, and we could actually make I could actually make the Game Boy Advance output analog RGB, so it was kind of an ideal thing. And then it actually ended up buying a commission from Ben Heckendorn. So my first consoleized Neo Geo is actually a Ben Heck system. Maybe I'll show that off someday. The quality of it isn't quite what I was expecting, and I guess he was actually working at a sign shop at the time, and it's kind of thin sign plastic, so there's actually, what surprised me, there's actually kind of a lot of flex to the system. But that wasn't the biggest issue I had with it. He'd actually, the thing was built in kind of an L shape, like they had a board that socketed into a different board. Whoops. And he took the socket off and actually did a direct solder between them. So I had to go in there later on with some aluminum foil and kind of shield all of those from the interference from each other. And that helped out a bit. Running clean power supplies helped out a bit. I ended up having to upgrade it to a... like a switching, well, which one is it? Switching or the good power supply. I actually had it running off of a laptop power supply there, and that helped, but it always had a lot of interference on the screen, and that's because of the soldering of getting the two boards together. And then the flex was kind of annoying too, so I guess about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I went and I bought an Arcade Works Omega consoleized system to replace it, and that's absolutely lovely. That feels like a commercial game system. Cannot recommend that enough. They're only like $500, and then you got yourself a real Neo Geo MVS console. Aww. So here I am at 5-4. This is the level where I frequently die. Ugh. And I don't think there's any realistic way for me to get that little mushroom up there. Fun. Stop here. Is it World 2 that looks like this, but with most of the stuff deactivated? I think it's the World 2-4 that looks like this. Okay, so I believe this is my last chance. Ooh! Got to 6-1. Yay! So again, the only Super Mario game I've beaten is Super Mario Land, and it's kind of unique because instead of having a little, like a Goomba there, telling me that my princess is in the wrong castle, whoops, they actually dress one of the enemies up as Princess Daisy, and then I come in and discover that it's an enemy. It's just kind of another cute way to do it. The Super Mario Land does not take place in the, whoops, Mushroom Kingdom. It takes place in, I don't even know how to pronounce it. Well, this level looks all... I don't know if I've ever, even as a child, gotten to this level before. I must have, through like a warp zone, but I don't think it's like one of the ones I frequented. Oh. Yay! And 6 of the fireballs. So let's see what 6-2's got for us. Still nighttime. So I don't think that I'm going to be obviously beating the game on this run. I think it's going to take me a few live streams to actually work my way up to World 8, but it is nice to get up to World 6. This is the farthest I have actually gotten on a live stream, and like I say, I've never beaten this game. I've pumped many, many, many hours into it. Whoops. I think the farthest I've ever gotten, and that was with warp zones, was like 8-2 or 8-3. Oop. Absolutely everybody in my school swore up and down they'd beaten this game, but I just don't see it. This game gets considerably harder as it goes. Now, part of me thinks that Mario games have gotten easier over the years with stuff like unlimited lives, but then I go and I look at the Mario Maker streams and holy jeez, the stuff they put themselves through. It's on a different level. Whoops. Good, an ice level, but luckily there are no ice physics in this game. I think Super Mario 3 had them. For sure they were in Super Mario World. That sucked. Sorry. Okay, so I think that is just about as much punishment as I want to put myself through today. I think that was, oh gosh, 4 or 5 playthroughs or attempted playthroughs of the game. So I think I'm going to call this live stream here and just kind of come back another day.